Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Figure I'd get on here and talk about triggering a little bit and needs. And triggering has a lot to do with needs. I've noticed a lot more that, when you're in a setting where there's a lot of people and meeting different people at different stages of life, when you're young, it's easier to get triggered because, a baby is very needy. A baby's crying when they're hungry or crying when they're tired, and you notice that. And then as you get older, you kind of live with those pains, and if you're hungry, it doesn't hurt as bad because you're used to that feeling, and it's a little easier to ignore for a little while. Um, those triggers are pain points, and when you're moving through a trigger, and so a lot of times it's something that's external in your environment, because a lot of times we get triggered by something that's happening or something that somebody else is doing, and then it takes a while for us to understand why we got triggered, right? Why would we get triggered by somebody else, the way they feel, or um, it's all a part of you. So if it triggers a state within yourself, um, then it's something that you're being exposed to expand your awareness. If we look at the bigger picture, everything is its own source, and it's expanding over time as it grows. Like when we look at trees or plants, that's why I love the saying, and I constantly repeat this on this channel: see the lilies and how they grow, because they grow over time with the seasons, and they always get as much sunlight as they need. They always get as much water as they need. Um, and so you're always getting what you need from your environment. If you don't like what you get, then usually you're fighting yourself, because you are creating it. You're creating those situations and how they show up. And so people find themselves getting triggered all the time, and a lot of times don't even realize why they're getting triggered. But then eventually that trigger will keep happening over and over and over until your mind expands. Oh, I understand why that happened and what needs to happen there. So triggers are a great thing. You could talk about the subject of triggers all day long, because we get triggered in a lot of different ways. And I was just talking to, one of my best friends. She's great. She lives in London, and, I admitted to her, I said, for, I can remember almost my entire life that, because it triggers me, that I even have needs, that I feel pain, that I get hungry, that any of those things happen to me, that I get thirsty. Right? It's like, ugh, now I gotta drink, or I gotta feed myself. It's like, why do I feel this need? Why is it even there? And um, and that's, groups have a tendency to break down because of their needs. And if somebody needs to be recognized or needs to be this or that, then it other people get triggered, because it's like, why? It's just an egoic thing. And um, the reality is, we're all just points of awareness in a field that is a shared experience. It's a shared awareness. There is no you. There is something creating a structure in a field that's instantaneously connected with every other source of every other structure in that field. And the interaction is how you experience yourself. And the self is just that simple. So spiritual practices like surrendering, surrendering to the process, and when you're in a point of surrender, you're not reacting to the things that are going on around you, which is not often taught or understood, because the act of surrender is something that is a grounding thing. Right? You're grounding whatever's happening around you, because the past is an illusion. It's not an illusion, but it shows unconscious energy, which creates momentum. A rock continues to be a rock because it's not very self-aware. relative to this space-time. If you looked at it closer, you'd see how much more aware it is because it's moving really fast when you look really close. And things are changing momentum really quickly the closer you get to the heart. So when you get closer to the heart of any field, then the momentum, the change of momentum increases exponentially. It's a logarithmic thing, which is why you can change your own momentum in space-time the closer you get to your own heart, because that's your source. There is not a source out there. The more you believe that your source is out there, whether it's the sun or the moons or somebody else, it's like, you are my everything. If I had said that, then I would be ignoring the fact that I am my everything and you're a part of me. We are both whole, and it's a different way of looking at it. And so relationships become much more powerful if you can get to where the relationship doesn't come out of need, but it becomes out of an enjoyed experience with one another, instead of something where, oh, I need this. So, because it's tiresome. And that's why relationships break apart. Because if somebody needs something from you all the time, and if they can't put words to it and they can't communicate it, then I don't know. And the reality is uh, it gets tiresome trying to constantly take care of someone else's needs. Um, but the reality is you can also provide for that need from a place of genuine heart if you can provide for it. And if you can't, then that's okay too. Then that can be triggering for somebody when you can't provide something, especially if they don't even know what they're looking for. So just things that I've been thinking about today, after spending a week with people that I'd never met before. Most of them were younger than me. There's a few people that were older than me. Most of them were the older ones were in their late 50s, maybe early 60s. I didn't see anybody. The only person I saw that was over 70 was one of the neighbors who just came to walk their dog and wasn't sure what was going on. So, who had lived next door to this vacation property for a long time. And so he brought his German Shepherd down. And he was a really old guy. I bet he might have been 80. I don't know. It was definitely the oldest guy I saw there. But it was a young wedding, a couple friend that I sold a raft 2 years ago, and he finally popped a question to his girlfriend after 14 years. They finally get married, and so yeah, it was just most of his friends and close friends and extended friends were all people in that age group, mid-30s, usually a couple people in their 40s, but most people were in their mid-30s. And so being a 51-year-old guy, I'm just kind of like, I'm in a different stage of my life, in a different growth cycle. And that's the reality. We go through different growth cycles for different reasons. And as we grow older, we start to understand more, hopefully. I mean, we do, some of us understand more relative to where we are in our own growth cycle. And we get to see it in other people. And, some people, when they go to something like that, they just cut loose and just, and then they explode into emotional states because they unknowingly aren't happy where they're at. And so they go to party, and then the partying in itself becomes a very needy experience. And then they realize that just getting hammered or getting drunk or getting stoned or whatever they do isn't really helping their overall state of being, because you're always trying to grasp at something to make you feel better because you don't feel better. And the reality is, unless you get to a place where you feel good, no matter what's happening, then you're always grasping for something out there. And that in and of itself is the main drive behind making a bunch of money and becoming a successful business and all these things that just really are important. What will make you much freer mentally and emotionally is needing less and less and letting go of burdens and making sure that you're not trying to hold on to somebody else's burdens. And just because someone needs something, just they can't do something for themselves, always be willing to help, but know that if you didn't have that ability, that it would make life less interesting. And that's something that I have to learn. Like, this is a recent lesson. Because we want the interaction. The last thing that we would want is to become needless and then teach other people to be the same way, and but then no longer then the interaction. Don't want to base interactions based on needs, but based on wants. And when you want to interact with somebody, regardless of what their needs are, is what means that you're coming from a place of fulfillment internally. That you don't need them to act a certain way, or not need something, or or whatever. That is just okay. And then sometimes the best thing you can do is say, well, I can't provide that for right now. I love you and I want to spend time with you, but I can't spend time with you if I can't talk about this, and this without triggering you, because it's something that you need to learn. And maybe if it does trigger them and then they have to spend time apart, eventually we're all back together in the center. It doesn't matter. All the little interactions out there that people think they're just terrible, where people are flying apart and can't talk to one another, and then they're coming back together, and then they get triggered again, and they come back to eventually it all comes back together at the center. We don't have any choice. I mean, there isn't a bottomless pit that's, that you just fall into blackness forever. It's a loop. If you look at anything out there, it's always coming from and going back to the heart. I mean, if you're flying away from it, it might look like that. It might look like a black hole. But it always comes back around and becomes more conscious and self-aware until it comes back to home to itself. So, just wanted to send a short message here on my YouTube channel. Hope you guys are having a great week. I mean, we just went through the 8-8 portal, so, there was a lot of endings and beginnings. 8-8 is all about that. New beginnings and endings. And it happens with our relationships. I feel like I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. And it's true. 8 is a great number of new beginning, but that also means that there was an ending of something else. And it was really cool that my friend got married on 8-8, 26. And 2 plus 6 is 8. So it's like 8, 8. I've seen some astrologers represent it that way. 888. What does this 888 mean for you? And for me, it helped me understand that triggering people is probably one of my life purposes. Because if someone feels triggered by what I say or do, especially when it talks about, treat other people the way you would want to be treated. And the reality is I would like to people challenge me and try to trigger me and see if it creates a response, because I have spent my whole life trying to ground out. I mean, I grew up with a dad who it was like his whole life he was there to tease and poke. And I mean, it can get old really fast, and eventually it just doesn't even affect you. You just don't care. Like if somebody wants to, you just kind of stare at them like, cool. But then a lot of other things don't affect you anymore, and then life starts to feel a little bit humdrum. Especially, when you've seen a lot of things, and it's no longer interesting to see a sunrise or a sunset. But then in the end, I think you start to enjoy the unexpectedness of life. Because if you can predict it, it's not fun. And it's better. Oh, yeah, I have a long hair right there. I didn't notice that. And if you didn't notice it, and a lot of, just birds, the way birds play together, the way cats or dogs play together, the way kids play together, and the unexpectedness of creating something new in the moment. Those are really the small things that you can enjoy that that can never get old, because they're always new. And thank God for that. Love you guys. Have a beautiful day. and I'll catch you on the next one.